China is showing force in the West Philippine Sea as the Philippines, the US and their allies participate in the annual Balikatan drills. The PLA's Shandong aircraft carrier has now twice cut through the Luzon Strait, and the Chinese Coast Guard has unfurled a Chinese flag on Sandy Cay, claiming Beijing has seized the sandbank, though the feature is within Manila's exclusive economic zone and already part of Philippine-controlled Thitu Island with its 12 nautical mile sea. Here's China's logic.
中方依法开展维权执法活动，旨在反制菲律宾方面非法登礁等侵权挑衅活动，坚定维护国家领土主权，确保铁线礁维持无人无设施状态，坚定维护南海各方行为宣言的严肃性。
Yet Article 5 of the 2002 Declaration explicitly states parties should not escalate or affect peace and stability by taking any features that are currently uninhabited. In other words, they should not alter the status quo. In the rest of this Balikatan show, there's also strategic international cooperation and, of course, the new military technology being tested in real-world scenarios. Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Yin Khvat. Joining us today are Lai I-chung, Prospect Foundation President, and Tony Hu, former U.S. Department of Defense Senior Director for China, Taiwan and Mongolia. A very warm welcome to both of you on the show today. We begin the show with Sandy Cay, or Key, which is made up of several sandbanks located over 1 nautical mile northwest of Philippine-controlled Thitu Island and 9 nautical miles northeast of Chinese militarized Subi Reef. Speaking to the South China Morning Post, retired Supreme Court Justice Antonio Carpio said the 2016 arbitral ruling confirmed that features like Thitu Island are entitled to a territorial sea. He said the ruling said the territorial sea, which is 12 nautical miles, extended to include Sandy Cay and even Subi Reef.
We have not lost the Pag-asa case. There is no truth whatsoever to the claim of the Chinese Coast Guard that the Pag-asa case has been seized.
The national government is doing everything that is necessary for us to make sure that we're not going to lose an inch of our territory.
President Lai, let me come to you first. So days after China's single flag, the Philippines unfurled 3 of its own flags on Sandy Cay 1, 2 and 3. So what do you make of China's narrative that it seized this feature?
First of all, definitely the Chinese wanted to claim as much as possible. But the location of Sandy Cay is very close to the Thitu Island, which is basically the second biggest island in the Spratly Island area. So there's a very strong strategic implication for that, because Thitu Island not only because of its size, but also is part of, right now it's owned by the Philippines. So by having a Sandy Cay, basically to deny the Thitu Islands, the Philippine ownership, and also if they started to do something on the construction in it due to the proximity between the Sandy Cay and the Thitu Island, that could pose a significant military challenge to the Thitu Islands. And Thitu Islands right now, although it's owned by the Philippines, and there are also some construction feature in it, but Thitu Island also has a very strong strategic usage for not just for Philippines, but also probably for Philippines' allies.
Tony, you know, it's all very well China trying to say, you know, we've seized this feature, and therefore, as President said, that means that we also kind of control Thitu Island as well. But it's got to be credible, isn't it? You know, they didn't even plant a flag; they unfurled it, very temporary, and it's been pushed back. It's been rejected by the Philippines, who've gone out with 3 flags on 3 different features of Sandy Cay.
Right, this is a foolish tit-for-tat type things, and I think the main thing is China wants to signal that they're not deterred by the presence of the international forces during this Balikatan area period. So I think it has more of a show than actual strategic or operational significance.
So you think it's more of a provocation?
Certainly.
Right. Okay. And so tell me more about the optics of that, Tony, in terms of this happening during Balikatan, when there are U.S. forces there, also out in force, you know, over 10,000, possibly 9,000 troops.
Right. This is obviously a sensitive period. Usually what China does is they just stand by and watch and collect information. This time they're actually doing things, including the presence of their carriers group. So this year is a little bit more, how should I say, aggressive. The actions that Chinese are taking. So I think we still need to watch because Balikatan is still going on. There might be other things that China will do. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm a bit surprised at the magnitude of activities that they're taking right now.
Right. And President Lai, the Declaration of Conduct of 2002, we mentioned that at the start, it basically says do not change the status quo, do not take any islands that haven't been taken so far. So why criticize the Philippines while essentially breaching this yourself?
But this is what China will always do, isn't it? Because China always criticizes others while gave all kinds of reasons or excuse for itself about the similar action that it did. And they did it to the Philippines in year 2012 regarding Scarborough Shoal and how they were able to steal, in my view, this whole Scarborough Shoal in year 2013. That's exactly the result of those actions. But I would say that these Balikatan exercises, which if you look at the scale of the military involvement in the United States, it's almost like a division. And for Philippines, basically it's a brigade, probably a little bit more than just a brigade. And for the Australia, it's basically like 2 companies, and the Japan also send out at least a platoon, probably 2 platoons. So there's a significant international military presence. And the locations of the Balikatan exercise also involve the northern Philippines, even to the Bashi Channel. Basically, that is southern part of Bashi Channel, that is the Luzon Strait.
Okay.
So that's very close to Taiwan and also very sensitive to China. And then Chinese this time, the action about the carrier Shandong and also their action in the Sandy Cay, although the location, they have 2 distinct areas. But I think that overall it's a political signal, at least for China, that you are exercising in my sensitive area, I'm going to do something about yours. So yes, it's a silly tic-tac, but that's a political signal.
Right. Just very last question on this section, Tony. What do you think is the likelihood or the possibility that China might actually do something on Sandy Cay or Sandy Cay? Given President mentioned the Scarborough Shoal, which was taken in 2012. Is this what, the fear that they are attempting to sow, perhaps within Philippine society?
Certainly there's a possibility, and the location is sensitive. It's so close to the Thitu Island. But we'll have to see. So far, usually before they do the construction, you see a lot of dredging and things approaching it. So far, they haven't done any of that. So,
and if you can briefly just talk about the response of the Philippines, was that effective, going out with the 3 flags on the 3 different sandbank features?
No, it's not effective. It's just for show. It has no...
They say they're fighting back against misinformation, Tony. They say that this is what China does. It starts with a lie, and then it operates that lie. And that if they don't jump in fast enough, then, things will be changed, the norm will be changed.
It is true. China defies international law. And so Filipinos trying to show that they, they still own it. But the fact is, I think the international partners who recognize UNCLOS will still say, hey, that's not yours, China. So no matter Chinese presence or not, I think those countries that shares the respect for international law will not recognize Chinese occupation.
Okay. China's Shandong Carrier Strike Group has twice transited the Luzon Strait, including the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, in the past week. The Philippine Navy also said the strike group had practiced flight operations with fighter jet landing and takeoff. Maritime expert Sea Light Director Ray Powell has also been documenting the movement of Chinese research ships around Batanes Islands. President Lai, so do you consider this to be a provocation?
It's a political signal, definitely, and the way that they especially try to cut through about the exercises, that definitely provocations. But then the way that the Shandong carrier Shandong itself is conducting the military-related activities, at least they did not really have a live fire exercises, which is a little bit different from what they did to Australia about a month ago. So it is less provocative, like what they did to Australia.
And to Taiwan.
To Taiwan, that's even more so. To Taiwan, that's not only a live exercise, but even very dangerous close-in. I think we haven't seen anything like that yet in Philippines.
Okay. Tony, now, I understand that you do think this is a big provocation. Can you can you explain why, if I play devil's advocate, this is actually permitted under international law?
Absolutely.
You know, and also the Philippines said that Shandong did not disrupt the exercises. So why is it a provocation?
Well, usually during the exercise period, we try to give each other sufficient space. And however, the fact is there will be intelligence opportunities. So when China and Russia exercises, we certainly send our survey ships. And looks like China is doing the same thing. If you look at the ships, the research ships that they send out there, you can see some are collecting hydrographic information on the water temperature, the salinity, and the flow, and the other ones are capable of launching submersibles so that they're probably looking at underwater cables and where they might be able to cut, and others are collecting information, electronic information.
Okay. Let's go to the next question. So on the topic of international cooperation, the Japanese Prime Minister and Ferdinand Marcos Jr. have pledged to deepen security ties and intelligence sharing on Ishiba Shigeru's first visit to the Philippines. The two sides will negotiate a defense pact known as the Acquisition and Cross-Servicing Agreement to provide food, fuel and other necessities for Japanese troops training in the Philippines. They will also begin talks on a security of information agreement. Japan has sent troops to actively participate in Balikatan for the first time this year, as has the UK in terms of British commando forces. Other contingents from Australia, France and Canada have also troops participating. 260 Australian soldiers are also taking part from Darwin's 5th and 7th Battalion. In addition to conventional forces, Australia says Special Forces soldiers and Royal Australian Air Force personnel have also been dispatched to Palawan. President Lai, let me ask you, what do you think is the significance of these particular regiments? Why the special forces of the Australians and the British?
I think probably Tony will correct me if I understood wrong, but what I understood is that the Australian particular role, especially in the Indo-Pacific, is that Australia could work on the Pacific side, but also work on the Indian Ocean side. So this is kind of two ocean countries, and they can work on either directions. And in this sense about whether that's Taiwan or the South China Sea, Australia basically is a strong country the U.S. can rely on and cooperate with for the issues right over there. So the Australia's involvement with the United States basically preparing Australia for the kind of the possible role it might have in the South China Sea contingency or Taiwan contingency. And then the issue about having a special operation forces Australia involved there, rather than Australian Navy or Air Force, that sort of indicates that the Australian Special Operation Forces probably will work with the U.S. Marine, in my view, about those island defenses or the island scouts, even the information and intelligence collecting, or as a defense for the United States. So that's what I think about the significance about this time, especially the exercise so close to Taiwan because it's in the Pacific Channel.
And Tony, just reflecting back for a second to Sandy Cay, that sort of highlights what President just said, highlights the provocation level, because one of the key scenarios that was rehearsed was actually defending against a invasion of one of the islands. Your thoughts on the regiments, and also to comment about the Japanese agreements. Why is acquisition and cross-servicing agreement, why is this important?
Okay, first, the small contingents of different countries' teams there actually is to enhance interoperability, especially in terms of command and control. And because once you have that procedure and process down, you can expand it out. So that's the key. The second thing is, if you look at the Acquisition Cross-Servicing Agreement, what we call ACSA, the United States have ACSA with both the Philippines and Japan. Now Japan and Philippines are signing that. What is it? What it is, for example, if Japanese C-130 lands in the Philippines and they need gas, with access, they just go get gas. The accounting process and payments already in the agreement, how that money is going to transfer. If the tire broke, C-130 landing, Filipino got C-130, they use their wheels. And in some access agreement, it actually allows the munition, such as if the F-35 from Japan lands in the Philippines needs to have some Sidewinder, and Filipinos got Sidewinder, slap it on, we'll pay the money later, and so that you can increase interoperability and readiness for those warfighters. So it's a very good agreement to have. And in addition, the Security of Information Agreement, basically this is the agreement where each country tell the other side, I will treat the information, the classified information you give me as my own. I will protect it as my own. What does that allow? That allows intelligence exchange. What Japanese collect, they can pass to the Filipinos, and Filipino can pass to Japan. And also from like common operating picture. Common operating picture is classified. With this type of agreement, now we can trade those common operating picture. Where are the enemies and what I'm doing and what I hope you can do. So these are the type of agreement that allows much closer warfighting connections if necessary.
And President Lai, Tony spoke about interoperability. So what are we supposed to make of the presence of these troops? Because we're often told in these sorts of exercises, this is simply about capability. What is the end goal of interoperability? Is it participation in one of these scenarios, or is that going too far?
Whether that's a specific scenario addressed, probably that would be very different questions. So probably we just leave aside about whether that's Taiwan related or not. But judging from the proximity about the locations, it's very difficult not to think about that those exercises are related with what's going to, probably they think that it's going to happen in Taiwan. But I think the interoperability through the exercise and training, that definitely will enhance the cooperation between especially the U.S., Philippines, and also Japan and Australia. So basically, if they are actually work as one, rather than four distinct groups of the military, try to have their own division of the areas for the responsibility, then that is not a joint, but basically that's combined operations. And that effectiveness will be very much less because you are just +4 rather than ×4. One military ×4, it's just a 1 + 1 + 1 + 1. So I would say that the interoperability right now is a key word, especially when we heard from Tony about the force multiplier and also effectiveness, and try to work as one military rather than four.
Tony, you wanted to jump in?
Right. I think the key for interoperability is coalition warfare. This is what we're hoping to achieve in the region, so that in case we need to fight together, we already know how to do it. So that's what we hope for interoperability, that we can help each other out and during conflict and act as one.
And so we are talking very much about capability. What could their participation in any South China Sea or Taiwan Strait crisis, what difference would that make?
Well, each country actually can handle different specialties, okay? Filipinos, what they can offer are those bases and logistic support, because they have the bases, they have the preposition equipment there, and they can do the transportation. And Australian, if their special forces are there, they can actually be inserted into certain places and report situations and provide the type of eyes on the ground, so to speak. And so each country can all have different capability that they bring to the game. And having this type of exercise, having this type of interoperability allows us to do that.
Right. So let's go down to some weapon systems then. So this year's Balikatan is seeing several firsts in weapon systems, which we have touched on last week. Nemesis, anti-ship missile, MADIS air defense, and now the Leonidas high-power microwave anti-drone system has been shown to the Philippine Naval Education and Training Doctrine Command at Zambales. How does each of these systems work? I might just start off with Tony.
All right.
And especially I understand that the MADIS and Leonidas work together.
Yes, we can do that. MADIS and also Leonidas is sort of a different way of killing similar system. Now, MADIS has longer range. It shoots drones and stuff. It has Stinger missiles, and it has a 30mm cannon.
So it's an air defense system?
It's an air defense system. It also has a radio frequency jammer. So if you look at the type of drones that's used in Ukraine by the Ukrainians, they have an operator with a video. They see the Russian tanks, they fly toward it. So this RF jammer, the radio frequency jammer, can jam the control if it's man-controlled, okay? So you can shoot down the larger drones. They can use a missile to shoot it down, or use the cannon to shoot it down, or as you get approached, they can use the RF jammer to get it down. So that's MADIS. Now, Leonidas is a separate system. I've seen this last year in a convention, which is amazing because it uses high-power microwave. What it does is it fries the circuit board of the drones, and they can kill a drone up to a 55-pound, pretty good-sized drone. If you see 100 of them coming, it's an area coverage. It will shoot out into airspace. And as things coming into it, their circuit card get fried, then they die. So, but it's not as long a range, much shorter than what a Stinger missile can shoot or a 30mm cannon can shoot. So it's a layered, it's a complementary, and it's aimed at different systems. When you have a swarm coming, you need Leonidas. If you just have a few, then use MADIS. And the other new system that you mentioned earlier is Nemesis, Navy Marine Expeditionary Sea Intercept System. Now, it is a sea control system and uses the new Naval Strike Missile, which is stealthy. Naval Strike Missile is a very smart missile. It uses multiple modes. Even if the enemy jams the GPS, for example, it has other modes. It knows where it's supposed to go to find the target. So for a Philippine and Taiwan defense scenario, it's absolutely perfect. So that's why the United States deployed those systems out there and use it for exercise.
Okay. And President Lai, what do those two first systems, so MADIS and Leonidas, in terms of drones, what does that say in terms of, where the U.S., the Philippines see vulnerabilities in their defense strategy?
I think that if you look at the way that PLA harassed Taiwan, especially in years 2019 to 20, majority of their activity actually is concentrated in the Bashi Strait in the area. And of course, since year 2022, right now we see that encircle Taiwan every time, including the joint combat patrol that happened in April 28th. At that time. And also we do see a lot of the Chinese increasing usage of the drone surrounding Taiwan or smaller drone to harass the offshore islands. And so in terms of the warfare, I think especially about the Leonidas system, of course, it's a shorter range due to the physical features, but in defending against the swarm attack against Taiwan for the critical nodes or our commanding infrastructures, that defense will be effective. And of course, to Taiwan myself, that okay, if you have the Leonidas, can we just purchase some of them to deploy in some of the key area against the possible swarm attack? And also, I think the Navy Nemesis system. Right now, the United States is using that exercise. I do not know whether they're going to deploy them in the northern Luzon in the U.S. bases there. But if for Taiwan, in order to create the hellscape, not just in the Taiwan Strait, but also in the Bashi Channel area, probably we also need that. of course, probably I'm asking too much because we had to master them and get ourselves in other weaponry system to master those capability and to put them into our doctrine as well.
Tony, final question. So some locals in the Philippines and also China have expressed concerns about, they're saying that this is escalation, all these new weapon systems, especially for Balikatan. What would you say to those Filipinos? We touched on it a little bit earlier. I mean, why is it that Ferdinand Marcos Jr. opened up the bases? Why is it that, they have requested these weapon systems, and we know that for a fact. The Philippine military has requested these systems. So what would you say to those Filipinos about why this is important?
I think it's important for them to understand the escalation has taken place. The maritime militia has been chasing away the Filipino fishermen and are basically isolating them and not allowing them to fish in their traditional area. And Philippines itself can't deny China effectively without United States some of these systems being placed and put at risk those Chinese ships, those systems that China used to intimidate Philippines. So they need to look at it from that angle. Escalation has taken place, and right now you're trying to maintain peace through strength by having this type of system there.
Right, but what I'm trying to get to is, does opening up EDCA sites, does having the Typhoon missile system, does this make the Philippines a target? This is what they're saying.
Well, I think Philippines was already a target because if China wants to enforce what they claim to be theirs, almost the entire South China Sea, and if Filipino protest, Philippines, they're already a target. So that's not really a valid argument.
Okay, and also, as you said earlier, that ultimately the Philippines doesn't want Taiwan to fall to China because they could be next.
Exactly.
Is that correct? Right, okay. We're going to have to end it there. Thank you so much, President Lai I-chung and Tony Hu, for joining Taiwan Talks today. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching the show today. Stay safe and see you next time.